Bonjour et bienvenue à notre réunion de midi. Nous sommes lundi le 8 septembre. Avant de prendre vos questions, nous avons quelques annonces à passer. Commençons par l'agenda de la réunion du Collège de demain à Strasbourg et les événements de presse que nous prévoyons. D'abord, les commissaires adopteront le rapport de prospective stratégique 2025 intitulé « Résilience 2,0 ». Celui-ci vous sera présenté à l'issue de la réunion du Collège par le commissaire Mikalev. Les commissaires adopteront également une communication notifiant l'attribution des montants des prêts SAFE aux États membres. La vice-présidente exécutive Virkkunen et le commissaire Kubilius vous présentera cette communication lors d'une conférence de presse dédiée. Comme toujours, nous vous enverrons plus de détails sur ces deux événements de presse via nos canaux de communication habituels. Now, let me remind you of this week's highlight event, the 2025 State of the Union Address, which President von der Leyen will deliver at the European Parliament in Strasbourg on Wednesday morning. This is a milestone event for European democracy, during which the President of the European Commission presents the current state of affairs, achievements made in the mandate so far, and most importantly, and most interestingly for you all, announces new targets and policies for the coming years. She will then discuss these topics with members of the European Parliament, and I remind you that the entire proceedings will be broadcast live for those of you who can't make it in person to Strasbourg. In preparation for this address, please allow me to bring your attention to a product that we published on Friday, taking stock of what the Commission has done in the first few months of the mandate, ranging from enhancing Europe's competitiveness to supporting our defence industry, supporting Ukraine and strengthening our trade agreements and partnerships around the world. You will find the links and all the relevant information on the tab reserved to State of the Union 2025 on the Commission's website, as well as in the email notification we circulated on Friday afternoon. That's it for our announcements. Let me now move to your questions, please.
Yes, thank you. Vibor Vlajnic, Croatian Radio Television. Question about Hungary. Prime Minister Viktor Orban yesterday said that if after the elections his country joins the Brussels policy, it would be a catastrophic thing and it would lead to chaos and poverty. Those are his words. So how does the Commission view these kinds of messages, especially coming from a member state? Thank you.
Thank you for your question, but we don't comment on statements made in the context of national parliamentary elections. Next question, please.
Thanks, Olaf. Samuel Stolten at Bloomberg News here. So on Friday evening, US President Donald Trump claimed that the European Commission's €3 billion Google ad tech fine was unfair, discriminatory, and that he threatened to commence a Section 301 proceeding, and this could potentially lead to retaliatory penalties against the EU. What's the Commission's response to this, please?
Thank you for your question. We have no comment to make on this statement by President Trump. Follow up.
So Trump also told reporters on Friday that he would raise this issue with the European Commission. Has he reached out since that fine was levied? Thank you.
To the best of my knowledge, that is not the case. Next question, please.
Thank you, Olaf. Eddie Wax from Euractiv. Scott Bessent, Treasury Secretary of the US, has said that there was a call between Ursula von der Leyen, Donald Trump and J.D. Vance on Friday, and then that he also had a call with Ursula von der Leyen. Did Ursula von der Leyen raise the topic of the Google ad tech fine, or did it come up during the conversation? And at what time were the phone calls? Thank you.
Thank you for your questions, Eddie. I don't have the details of the timings of the calls to hand, but I can tell you with certainty that the only topic during the call was Ukraine. Next question, please, Jorge. Come back to you.
Hi, Olaf. I know that you don't want to comment on the new threat by President Trump, but is the Commission preparing in any way for the eventual case that this Section 301 might be applied against the European Union, or are you not doing anything in this regard? Thank you.
Thanks, Jorge. Speaking with my trade hat, I can tell you that, as in all circumstances, the Commission is prepared for all possibilities, or all options remain on the table. I want to come back to Eddie, who had a follow-up.
Thank you. Yeah, so you just said that the phone call between President Trump and President von der Leyen was only about Ukraine. What did they talk about Ukraine? Thanks.
We're not going to provide further details. I think we're all quite clear on the fact that we're at a crucial moment as regards our action vis-à-vis Ukraine, and we are in the process of preparing our next sanctions package. So these were the topics that were under discussion. I'm not going to go into further detail at this stage. Next question, please. Jennifer.
Thank you. On Ukraine and Donald Trump, Donald Trump said over the weekend that European leaders would be coming to Washington on Monday and Tuesday. I don't see any such visit on Ursula von der Leyen's calendar, but could you confirm if that is the case, or whether she is going? Do you have any information about the other European leaders who might be attending? And it's been reported David O'Sullivan will be in Washington for talks. Can you give us some details of those meetings? Who will he be meeting? And what's the agenda for those meetings? Thanks.
Thanks very much. So, as regards President von der Leyen, she is fully focused on giving her State of the Union address in Strasbourg on Wednesday, as I mentioned earlier. Currently, no further travel plans are envisioned. I can't speak on behalf of the other EU member states, but there are no other leaders in or on their way to Washington, as far as I'm aware. I can confirm that our EU sanctions envoy, David O'Sullivan, is currently in Washington, D.C. with a team of EU experts. They will meet with their US counterparts later today to discuss sanctions. We're not going to provide more details beyond that at this point. I can also say that there has been, over the course of the weekend, outreach from the Commission to our Member States, which is a normal part of the procedure as we prepare sanctions packages. Follow-up.
And I hear you don't want to provide details, but can you sketch out how you see the issue of secondary sanctions, following also Scott Bessent's remarks? Is that something that you expect to see in the 19th package?
Thanks for your follow-up, Jennifer. No, I can't provide more details at this stage, for the first reason that the meetings haven't happened yet, and second of all, because we're very firmly focused on the President's State of the Union address, where some of these topics should be addressed. Next question, please. Go ahead.
Anu Prayer from Euractiv. Still on the Google case, on Friday, during the announcement, we did not get a press conference from EVP Ribera. Can you also clarify where was the EVP during that time? Why was there not a press conference? And hypothetically, if 301 proceeding is started by the US, what are the next steps? And a small question, what about the other cases against Google from the EU? Thank you.
Many thanks. I will pass the floor to my wonderful colleague Ariane in a second, but before I do, just to add one small precision to the question we received earlier, there was no call between President von der Leyen together with President Trump and VP Vance. There was just a call between President von der Leyen and VP Vance. So just to make that fully clear, and with that I pass the floor to Ariana for the Google questions.
Thanks a lot, and it will be a tandem between me and Thomas, I think, to provide you with the best information available. So first of all, of course, we're not going to speculate on hypothetical questions, so on that one, nothing to add. On the other Google cases, Thomas will provide you an overview. For what concerns Friday, look, a decision was adopted Friday towards the late afternoon. The best we could offer in terms of press arrangements to provide you with timely information was a technical briefing, which, of course, we made available. And Executive Vice President Ribera has published a statement, which is her declarations and her views on the case. On Friday, I don't know her exact whereabouts. What I know is that she was traveling to Ethiopia very early Saturday morning. She is in Ethiopia right now for an important conference on climate, I believe. Therefore, it can happen that a case is ready for adoption and we decide to be forthcoming with the adoption process as quickly as we can, even if the Executive Vice President of Reference is not available in the press room. As always, it's the substance that dictates the timings and not necessarily the communication aspects. Therefore, for this reason, we have offered you a press release, a statement by the Executive Vice President, and a technical briefing.
Follow-up.
Sorry, but the Section 301 is no longer a hypothetical possibility, but a statement, well, a Truth Social post by the US President that has said that he will issue this proceeding against the EU. So we would really like to know what would happen if this were the case. And in terms of EVP Ribera not being available, I mean, the EU-US right now has quite a tense trade relation, so where should we ask our questions in the future? Is this the business as normal, that you announce fines and we don't have a place to ask our questions? Thank you.
Thank you for your follow-up. To be clear, as far as I understand, the definition of hypothetical is something that has not yet happened that may happen. Therefore, in this case, that's precisely what it is. It is something that the President has said may happen, which has not yet happened. We're not going to comment on it further. Ariana may wish to complement.
No, indeed, on that, no comment. Point taken that you would have appreciated having the possibility of asking questions to the Executive Vice President. This was not possible. The adoption was very late in the day. The best we could offer is what I said. If you want on-the-record comments, you can always access the spokesperson. I was here in the press room until late on Friday. You could have reached me for interviews, for questions via email, via phone. Therefore, the occasions for on-the-record comments are numerous. Of course, don't hesitate if you need in the future to reach out. And the Executive Vice President, I'm sure she will have other occasions to make her views known. Aside from the statement, she will be giving interviews, she will be giving press conferences on other topics, and of course, she will be able to handle Google cases as well. Thomas, perhaps you want to complement with the overview of the rest?
Thank you, Ariana and Olaf. Two other cases ongoing under the DMA, indeed, against Google. The one on anti-steering and the other one on self-preferencing 2, both for which we have adopted preliminary findings in March. The case is ongoing and very important. Google now, for both of these cases, has the right to defend itself, and we will take it from there.
Many thanks. I suggest that we keep Thomas here. So therefore, if you have any questions relating to his files, we'll take them now, and then we'll come back to Ariana on competition. So are there any questions for Thomas on the files he covers, tech, defence, etc.? No, in that case. I ask you, have you any questions for Ariana on competition cases? No. Other topics? Please, Nordine.
Merci, Olaf. I have a question to Eva and another question to Anwar, if you don't mind. My question to Eva is about the humanitarian flotilla in the Mediterranean area, where there are a lot of, or too many European citizens, unarmed citizens, who could be harmed in the sea, in the international waters. My question is, does the Commission has any kind of coordination or a contingency plan to assist the European citizen if they are harmed in the international water, or even close to Gaza? And we'll ask my question to Anwar later on. Thank you.
Many thanks, Nuruddin. Eva, over to you.
Nuruddin, good afternoon, everybody. Maybe I can tell something about the flotilla and about the efforts of delivering humanitarian aid in such a way, and then Anwar can speak about the protection of the European citizens. Regarding the flotilla that is on its way, I have to say that we don't encourage flotillas like this, because basically they can escalate the situation, and they also put their participants at risk. But on the other hand, it doesn't mean that there are justifiable the attacks against such flotillas like drone attacks, etc. So we think that the best way how to deliver the humanitarian aid is via our partners. This is what we try to achieve, to deliver the humanitarian aid in a larger scale, and we keep the channels with Israel open, and we talk to Israeli authorities.
Nordine, you have a follow-up on this?
Because the European Union prefers to deal with partners on the ground like UNRWA. Philippe Lazzarini, the commissioner of UNRWA, said this morning to Le Monde that they used to have 400 distribution center or hub. They are now only 4 in Gaza because of the Gaza, the Israeli-American organization. So I know what the European Union is trying to do, but in fact, on the ground, the humanitarian aid are not distributed by your partners. So the problem, that's why the civilians, the public opinion, the European people, but there are in this flotillas representative or citizen from 40 countries. So the problem is there. The problem that there is the distribution is not happening, despite maybe there are much more trucks getting in. Thank you.
Seen the recent case of flotilla in June when basically the participants were detained and the cargo was seized, so it didn't help anyway. What we try to do is to persuade the Israeli authorities not to impose obstacles and not to impose any logistical issues or registration issues to our humanitarian partners. We try to increase the number of the trucks that are getting into Gaza, and we mainly try to stop the suffering of people in Gaza. You know, as in any other job, there is a way how to deliver humanitarian aid, and that's why we work with well-established, experienced partners that know how to deliver the aid so that it can reach, for example, children, elderly, women, etc. This is a know-how that our partners have, and that has been proven over the decades that they are able to deliver in such a way.
Thank you, Eva. If you agree, colleagues, we'll keep Eva up here so she can answer questions on her files before we come back, Nordine, to your questions to Anwar. David, please.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Olof. David Carretta, Radio Radicale. Eva, can you explain how this flotilla could escalate the situation? Because you said that, used the term escalate. So I'm wondering how, in the situation we are seeing in Gaza and also with the hostages and so on, I'm wondering how they can escalate the situation. Thank you.
That's maybe exactly the question for Anwar when we talked about the protection of the European citizens, because obviously if they get into problems, it could be some kind of an escalation of the situation. And as I said, we try to keep all the channels for the negotiations with the Israeli authorities opened.
And if I could just add that our focus remains, as we have said repeatedly from here, and as Anwar will be happy to repeat, that the aid must be delivered. We've made it very clear, and we can't be clearer on this point. Any other questions for Eva, please? Okay. Any other questions for Eva? I don't see any in the room. I don't see any online. Thank you, Eva. Then, Nuruddin, we come back to your questions to Anwar.
The 3 of the European Union partners in the Palestinian side has been sanctioned by the United States. 3 NGOs has been added to the list of sanctions, I think, during the weekend by the United States. This is another problem because Eva spoke about the priority to work with the partners on the ground, which is true, and they have experience like UNICEF, UNRWA, etc., etc. But the reality is that the NGOs are being sanctioned by the American. What is the European Union reaction, Anwar? And could you elaborate on the protection that the European Union is entitled to provide to the citizens, European citizens, who could be in danger in the Mediterranean area. My last question is on other issues on Iran. The Foreign Affairs Minister of Iran said that he had a positive telephone call with Madame Gaye Kalas. What is the reading out from your side? And do you see that the European Union has the ability to continue assuming its role of coordination the last days of the GCPOA? Thank you.
Go ahead, Anwar.
Thank you, Nordin. I will start with the last point on Iran in terms of the role of the High Representative. And as you will have seen in the past few days, and also referring to the question that you put on the table, the High Representative is indeed quite seized, active on the matter, because the window of diplomacy is now fully open, and we are taking that window to indeed exercise diplomacy, conduct diplomacy, and exhaust all the means that we have at our disposal in the window that we have of the 30 days following the activation of the snapback by the E3 in the last few days. Now, on the question vis-à-vis the 3 Palestinian human rights organizations. The decision to impose sanctions on these 3 Palestinian human rights organizations runs counter to the work of human rights defenders who are essential actors towards building inclusive societies and upholding democratic values. They must be protected and their rights must be respected. Attacks or threats against the court, so the ICC in this case, elected officials, personnel, and those cooperating with the court are not acceptable. This is what we can say on the matter. Then you had another question relating to the flotillas. In complement to what my colleague Eva said, I can just stress that the authorities responsible for ensuring consular protection are the states to which the citizens belong. The EU urges the parties and the international community to make all efforts to finally bring this terrible, terrible conflict to an end through an immediate and permanent ceasefire that would enable the provision of a massive, immediate and unimpeded humanitarian assistance.
Many thanks for this very clear answer, Anwar. Any other questions here on this topic, please, folks? Go ahead.
Thank you, Olof. Luis Tovar, Informativos Telecinco. It's a question on Israel. This morning, Prime Minister Sanchez of Spain announced new measures against Israel, and Netanyahu's government includes a permanent ban on the sale of weapons and ammunition to Israel and forbid people who have participated in what he has called genocide from entering Spain. So I would like to know your reaction and if you understand these measures, taking into account that European Union as 27 member states is unable to reach a common position on Israel. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. We will not comment, obviously, on comments made by a Prime Minister, especially on sovereign decisions that have been announced. At our level, the direction of travel remains unchanged. Indeed, as we have already said and as the High Representative herself has already outlined, all the options remain on the table. And at the same time, the channels remain open with the Israeli Foreign Minister to put pressure on the Israeli side to bring about a change on the ground and to improve the situation on the ground. Now, in terms of the dynamics in the Council that you have been referring to, we will not go there now because it's quite clear and you're all aware of the dynamics there. But in the meanwhile, diplomacy is ongoing. So basically, let's keep the direction of travel as we have already said. But I would also like to react here to a point that you have raised in terms of a genocide determination, to be again very clear and to echo and convey here the position of the Commission insofar as establishing whether crimes, international crimes, including genocide, have been committed is the competence of national courts as well as international courts and tribunals which may have jurisdiction.
Silvia.
Thank you very much, Silvia Yusuf, El País newspaper. A follow-up. You just mentioned all options are here. Sorry. all options are on the table. In the past days, besides Spain, we've seen also Belgium taking national decisions, many governments announcing decisions, and people going on the streets. Yesterday in Brussels, tens of thousands of people as well, asking to do more. I understand there's a problem that the EU, the 27, do not seem able to agree on measures like the Horizon program, but the Commission can present, regardless, the Commission can do a step and present a proposal to more options on the table. Is this being considered that as a gesture, as a sign that the Commission might propose a new option on the table to be evaluated by the 27th? Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvia, for your question. I would not enter into any speculation here at this stage in terms of follow-up action, if any, by the Commission, but I would like to recall the proposal that the Commission has made in terms of having a partial suspension of the EU-Israel Association Agreement with the partial suspension of the Horizon, the participation of Israel into the Horizon Europe program. The position of the member states are clear, and you see that, and you also just mentioned the case of Spain. In the meanwhile, Europe has been the most active actor in the world on this file, day in and day out. The High Representative at her level, making use of all her prerogatives and the space of diplomacy, has been activating all the tools at her disposal and at the disposal of the EU on so many different levels, together with the Commission, whether in terms of keeping the channels open and establishing this channel with her counterpart, which then led to this understanding that we have between the EU and Israel, which now we are part and we are in the implementation phase with all the caveats and all the limitations that you know, because we operate in a war zone and in a war theater, and we keep the pressure on our interlocutors to actually have a improvement on the ground to save people's lives and to feed them, because we see, again, starvation and famine unfolding to our eyes. Beyond that, the other instruments have been activated in terms of financial support to Palestinians, and the EU is the biggest donor vis-à-vis the Palestinian Authority. Then, in terms of humanitarian, my colleague Eva also recalled all our actions, and in terms of humanitarian support on the ground, we have also delivered through the CSDP mission EU Rafah in time of ceasefire, which was a few months ago, helping 4,000, I recall the right number, 4,000 Palestinians out of Gaza for medical support. This is the EU on the ground, the concrete help that the EU has helped and has put on the ground vis-à-vis the Palestinians, and to also have a ceasefire as soon as possible, and we keep our unity on these fronts. Indeed, you refer to the different positions of the member states, but let's also here stress a second on what we are all united about. We're united on a two-state solution. This is a European position at 27 at the highest level in terms of the heads of state and government. And the upcoming conference that we will also see in the United Nations General Assembly also goes in that direction. So on this, we are all united. We're all united that humanitarian aid must get into Gaza without any obstacle, and this is what is driving the action of the High Representative together with the Commission. And we are also united that we need an immediate ceasefire and a release of whole hostages. So these parameters are parameters on which we, as 27, are all on the same page, and this is what we follow in terms of our action vis-à-vis this file. So just to, again, frame here all the efforts at the level of the EU on this file, which is quite tragic, as you all know.
Many thanks, Anwar. I have Diego.
Yeah, on these two follow-ups, because, of all you said, obviously to many people, it's just not enough. You had 70,000 people yesterday, according to conservative numbers, on the streets of Brussels, asking, amongst others, the European Union to do more. What would be your answer to those 70,000 people, according to conservative numbers, on the streets in Brussels? And the second one, you can't comment the sanctions announced by the Spanish government, but maybe you can comment the sanctions announced by the Israeli government towards the Spanish government, including travel bans on Spanish ministers, if that's the way to go. Thank you.
Thank you. Just before you jump in, Anwar, many thanks for your questions. But in relation to your first question, what we would say to protesters, Anwar has already answered that. He's outlined the EU position, which can't be clearer. So, Anwar, if you want to complement that, feel free. But I think he's already been very clear.
Thanks, Olaf. First, what we would say to citizens, and this is also the exercise of this press room, is that we hear them and that we keep acting accordingly. But I would ask, actually, and I would myself here ask one question, if I may. When you ask me, what could we do more? The question we should be actually asking ourselves is, what other actor is doing as much as the EU here? The answer is simple. There is no one. There is no one else beyond the EU that is actually doing what we do vis-à-vis the situation in Israel and Gaza. Politically speaking, on the parameters I have just outlined, two-state solution, but also in terms of calling for a ceasefire and our action on humanitarian. Then in terms of financial support, we are those who actually keep the Palestinian Authority alive in terms of our support, financial support. Then in terms of sanctions that we have at EU level, right, vis-à-vis extremist settlers under the EU Global Human Rights Sanction regime. And proposals are on the table, but obviously, looking at the lack of consensus among 27, we cannot go further at this stage, but the diplomatic action keeps ongoing. So on all these fronts, the EU is active, and there is no other actor that is doing as much or more than what we do at EU level. So this is maybe a simple fact that needs to be recalled to everyone here to also correct a misperception that keeps following us, and maybe it's time to actually break that misconception. On the last point, in terms of the sanctions, obviously we don't comment indeed in terms of national decisions, because as you know, from here we can also only announce whenever there is a consensus amongst the 27. Now, vis-à-vis the Israeli decision that has been announced, diplomacy remains key in terms of having channels open, and basically I would just refer to that, and that's also in that spirit that the High Representative is having that channel open with her interlocutor, because if we don't talk, then we don't manage to find a solution on this critical file. So dialogue and diplomacy remain key on this file, and that would be my reaction to your question.
Many thanks. Do we have any other questions for Anwar? Musa.
Yes, thank you, Olof. Musa Business Times. Well, I have another question related not to the Middle East, but to Turkey, and that is the ongoing process of this. Okay. Sorry. Wait.
If we could just stick to this topic for the moment. So if there are other questions relating to Gaza and Israel for Anwar, if you could raise your hands now, please. That's not the case, nor do I have people online. Then go ahead, Musa, on Turkey.
Okay, thanks again. As you know, I mean, there is an ongoing disarmament process of PKK in Turkey, which was perhaps announced already in the beginning of this year by the imprisoned Kurdish leader Öcalan, and it started, I think, this summer. And I would like to know if this in some way is monitored by the EU, especially when it comes to what you would expect should be a parallel process. I'm referring to imprisoned Kurdish politicians and mayors in Turkey. Another issue is that it also seems to be related to the situation in Syria, because Öcalan has also called on the autonomous Kurdish administration in northeast Syria, Rojava, also to disarm. And that is, as you know, related to the agreement between the authorities there and the new regime in Damascus. But that agreement hasn't been implemented yet, so I wonder if you have any comment on that also. Thank you.
Thank you, Mose. Our position is clear and remain unchanged. The EU welcomes, the same way we welcomed it at the time of the announcement, Abdullah Öcalan's call to PKK to lay down arms and dissolve. The EU considers that launching a credible peace process aiming for a political solution to the Kurdish issue would be a positive step to achieve a peaceful and sustainable solution. We do also call on all parties to seize the moment and embark on an inclusive process based on dialogue and reconciliation, keeping in mind that finding a fair and lasting solution respecting fundamental rights and the rule of law would not only benefit all Turkish citizens, but would also contribute to the stability of the entire region.
Many thanks, Anwar. We actually had another question on Gaza over here, I believe. Please go ahead.
It's actually on Israel, if that's okay. Just wondering, I don't think the Commission has reacted yet to the shooting this morning in Jerusalem.
Yeah, if you want a reaction, you need to cut the mic. Yes, are we good? Yes, we are. We condemn this attack, as we condemn all loss of lives, which actually must stop now. We call for de-escalation, and this shows how necessary and critical a ceasefire is. Civilians on both sides, both Palestinians and Israelis, have suffered for far too long and far too much, and this must end now, and it is high time to break this cycle of violence.
Many thanks, Anwar. Go ahead, please.
Hi, thank you very much. Luca Hachidze from Formula TV. So my question is about Georgia. Yeah. Could you please just...
Wait 1 second, just before we take your question on Georgia, are there any other questions on Israel-Gaza, given that Anwar has answered another one just now? Are there any other questions for the files Anwar covers? If not, we can pass to Georgia. Please go ahead.
Okay. So could you please just describe the procedure for suspending a visa-free regime? What does it look like in practice? And also, since you are not planning to publish the document received from the Georgian government, could you please just give a general impression of it? Because it looks very clear that the requirements are not met. Repressive laws are still in place. Journalists, activists, political leaders are still behind the bars. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. This is a question that we talked about last week. I can confirm that the Georgian authorities have replied to the letter sent by the European Commission in July. We are still in the process of assessing the letter, and the Commission expects the Georgian authorities to take concrete steps to address this issue raised in all Commission recommendations. Now, last week, Georgian authorities have taken another step against democracy in the country by freezing the bank accounts of independent civil society organizations. This is another assault on fundamental rights and a weaponization of the justice system as a tool of repression. The EU urges Georgian authorities to immediately reverse this decision.
Many thanks, Marcus. Follow up.
So as we await the EU's decision on visa-free regime, can you confirm whether the Commission is also continuing its efforts to impose sanctions on certain individuals because of their role in human rights violations? Thank you.
When it comes to sanctions, that would be for my foreign affairs colleagues, in case...
Yeah, we've no comment to make on that at the moment. Many thanks. Question for Marcus? Okay, we're going to take any questions from Marcus on the files he covers first. David, please.
Yes, thank you, David Carretta, Radio Radicale. Marcus, I'm wondering if you have an update on the shooting by the Libyan Coast Guard of the NGO vessels that took place last week or 10 days ago, since you said publicly that you would have asked clarification to the Libyan authority. Thank you.
That would be for Guillaume, that's under his head, which I've covered last week.
Okay, before you go, Marcus, just to double check that there are no further questions for you. I don't see any here in the room, nor do I see them online. Therefore, Guillaume, if you don't mind coming up here to join us to answer Master Carretta's question, that would be great.
The question is from... Hi, David. What I can share with you is that all the parties to a search and rescue operation must fully respect international law and international maritime law, and this must be absolutely clear. Regarding the incident you just referred to, so I can confirm that the EU delegation in Libya raised the incidents in meetings with the Libyan authorities and urged them to take all the necessary measures to ensure Libya's full compliance with national and international obligations. So the Libyan authorities informed the EU delegation that they are now investigating the reported incident, and we are now waiting for the outcomes of this investigation for further assessment.
Thank you, dear Guillaume. Questions for Guillaume? Go ahead.
This is not a question for Guillaume, it's a question for you, Olaf. Philip Bedosylvin from the Norwegian media Energi og Klima. There are elections in Norway tonight, and regardless of the outcome, parties on both sides of the potential blocks are signaling that they want to renegotiate the EEA agreement or reject central EU directives on the energy field or electricity grid market field. What is the Commission's position on the potential for a renegotiation, and what is the position on the potential for a big backlog on energy directives?
Thank you for your question, but as I mentioned earlier on, we don't comment on parliamentary elections internally or externally. We'll be happy to discuss any issue that the future Norwegian government wishes to discuss at the appropriate time. Okay, do we have any questions for Guillaume before I set him free? I see none online. I see none in the room. Go ahead.
It's just a follow-up on the Norway question, Quillan, for your active. The backlog specifically is increasing, given that the EU is embarking on its fifth energy package. The Norwegians have yet to adopt the third. Early in the year, you deferred. Since then, there has been no movement, even to the contrary. The initial goodwill from the Arbeiderpartiet to implement at least partially the laws has been abandoned. Given that there seems to be a misalignment on the energy rules, when will the Commission take action as per the EEA agreement?
Thank you for your question. I call on the notorious AKI, Anna Kaiser, to give a reply.
So this discussion now on what is happening in Norway absolutely has to be taken outside of the context of the elections. As Olaf was saying, we do not go into speculating on outcomes of elections in any country. But what has been discussed here in the press room as well, and obviously elsewhere, is the fact that there are delays in the implementation of the energy legislation that is related to the EEA agreement. We do not communicate on deadlines as such. For us, the main point is that the laws will be implemented fully, that both parties stick to commitments that have been made in the course of negotiating them. It is, from our point of view, it is for the benefit for Norway, for Norwegian citizens, as it is for us. But we do not do these discussions and negotiations by setting rigid deadlines and then kind of putting the focus on what will happen, how are you sanctioning, what is going to happen. We stay in touch at political level. This is a dialogue that has been ongoing, but yes, it is correct that there is a backlog in the implementation, but our priority is which coalition takes place in the Norwegian government after the elections, to continue working with them and to ensure that the legislation will be implemented.
Follow-up.
Sorry, you alluded to a dialogue with the Norwegian side. Prime Minister Gahr Støre recently said that he was delaying adoption of EU energy rules given that he was expecting a change in the legal makeup of the EU. Does that mean that the Commission has previously communicated to the Norwegian side that it would change key laws such as the Energy Efficiency Directive or the EPBD?
I have not seen the full comments made by Støre, as you mentioned, but there are contacts. There are our contacts with the Norwegians. There are our contacts with the EFTA Secretariat. And we are, for the moment, not in the process of looking into changing legislation. And this is something that will be always seen in dialogue, in conversation with the Norwegians. But I mean, what is very clear is that as part of their EEA commitments, the implementation of certain internal market legislation is factored in.
Thank you, Anna Kaiser. Do we have other questions for Anna Kaiser on the many, many files she covers? I don't see hands in the room. I see Eleonora online. Eleonora, is it an energy question or another question for Anna Kaiser?
Yes, it is indeed. Thank you for giving me the floor. Eleonora from MLEX. My question is about the tripartite contracts that were announced on Thursday, last Thursday by Jorgensen. How will these tripartite contracts work in practice, and how will the Commission plan on de-risking investments? And are we to expect, new guidelines for member states to implement? What are we to expect from this announcement?
So what the Energy Commissioner Jorgensen announced in Copenhagen last week was indeed the tripartite contracts. That is also part of his mission letter. So they represent an innovative approach to tackle the challenges that the energy sector is facing at the moment. The industry is struggling due to geopolitical uncertainty, supply chain tightness, disruptions, global competition, and notably in the case of Europe, high energy prices and high energy costs at the moment. So the tripartite contracts seek to address these issues in a new way by having flexible arrangements for each of the sectors that would incorporate or bring together both governments, suppliers and producers. And Commissioner announced 2 priority sectors, offshore wind and grids, and storage and demand response. And these don't exclude other areas as well. So basically the idea how this would work is to bring together key actors in both of the supply and uptake of clean energy plus the public sector. And here, obviously, our role, as well as that of the member states, is to ensure regulatory certainty and incentives. And then we are also happy to have the European Investment Bank there on board as regards financing. So it's basically a cooperation tool that we want to be able to use in these situations where it's a very multifaceted situation with many, many challenges that the sector is facing. So we're starting with 2 priority areas, offshore wind grids and storage and demand response, but willing to look and spread out further as well.
Thank you, Anna Kaiser, for this very comprehensive answer. Please, you have another question?
Just quickly on the tripartite contracts, are they by invitation only, and how will there be transparency? Will there be minutes shared, participant lists, framework agreements?
On the housekeeping, let me consult and get back, but surely, given that they involve public institutions and public actors, we want to keep up the very high level of transparency that we have for everything we do and on the meetings that we have.
Eleonora, did you have a follow-up? I saw your hand pop up, but it's gone again. I think you're still there. You have a follow-up?
Yes, I'm here.
Go ahead.
Yes, trying to understand practically how will this work. Like you mentioned, this cooperation tool. Is this like a platform where buyers and sellers can meet? Is this lower taxations, some form of financial support? You mentioned financial support through the EIB. Could you elaborate a bit more concretely how will this work?
The announcement of the first priority areas was made on last week, Thursday. I think it was Thursday or maybe Friday, Thursday. Now, of course, we have made the political commitment and we have communicated this commitment to the member states. And now, of course, the work is starting. So the details of who is meeting, how they are meeting, and what kind of minutes will be published at the meetings, and then mapping out what kind of financing is required, which is where the European Investment Bank can come into play. This is something that is now starting, and we will be able to communicate as soon as there is something a bit more concrete. But last week's announcement was to elaborate a little bit on what the tripartite contracts, what do they mean, and exactly in which areas do we want to put them in place to start the process and to see how it works.
Thank you, Anna-Kaisa. Any other questions for Anna-Kaisa in the room or online? That is not the case. Other questions for us today? Eddie.
Thank you. Sorry to go back to this question of the President's flight last week, but could have been a very more tragic story. I have a question on the way that the Commission invites journalists on the President's plane. So, according to the product that you put out about the State of the Union, media pluralism is a key tenet of European democracy. How does the Commission decide to invite only one journalist on a 4-day trip with the Commission President? Thanks.
Thanks for your question, Eddie. Look, I think our commitment to media pluralism, to being as helpful as we can to journalists, to being as transparent as we can within the necessary boundaries of the legislative process and so on is very clear. Show me someone who does better on those parameters around the globe, and I'd be very surprised. Those decisions are made on a case-by-case basis as regards who can and can't travel. It's not just with the President. Commissioners often can take journalists with them as well on mission. It's done on a case-by-case basis. Multiple media can join, and that's really all we can say about it. There are, of course, restrictions in terms of how many people logistically can fit on a given plane and so on. Or a train, journalists travelled to Ukraine, notably, with the President. We do our best to facilitate the widest possible range of journalists to travel with the President and with other commissioners as part of our commitment to media pluralism and as part of our commitment to keeping you as informed as we possibly can. Follow-up.
Does the Commission need a bigger plane in that case? And secondly, is there any preference given to European media? The FT, for example, is owned by a Japanese company. Does the Commission factor that in when they think about, invites? Thanks. Thanks
for your leading questions, Eddie, but we have no comment to make in either case. A bigger plane might be nice, but we also try to deliver the maximum value for European taxpayers who fund the whole show. So, we really try to keep things as efficient as possible also in this respect. So that's all we have to say on that for the moment. Any other questions for us today? Nuruddin.
Olof, the Prime Minister of Iraq is in the House. He's in a meeting or he's about to finish his meetings. I don't know really who Prime Minister of Iraq met or is meeting now. Of course, I don't know which topics. When could we be in contact with you during the afternoon to get the lines about which topics have been discussed?
Many thanks for this question, Nuruddin. I don't have the answer to hand. We will check as quickly as we can and let you know. Any other questions before we wrap up today, folks? I don't see any hands in the room, nor do I see hands online. With that, I wish you a good afternoon. Don't forget to tune in on Wednesday morning for the State of the Union address by President von der Leyen. Thank you very much. Good afternoon.